Welcome. This is another edition of Carded Tarot Tales, Safer at Home Storytelling. And I couldn't be more excited tonight. I have two of my really good storytelling friends with me on the show this evening. I have Vicky Juditz and Erica Blumfield, and I can't wait to hear what they have in store for us. And before we get going with that, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Ryan McGranahan, and tonight we're going to be using the Jodorowsky Camion Tarot de Marseille. It's a modern restoration of the Converse 1760 deck, and Jodorowsky, the filmmaker, poet, whatever you know him by, he spent years. He tried to. He claims to have restored the true tarot, and I'm a little skeptical of his claims. But they did a really neat job on a historic deck that's actually, in various guises, has been continually in print since 1760. And so I just love the history of it, and it's got a lot of vivid colors, and I'm really looking forward to using it and exploring some of the images that come up with it that relate to our stories. And I'm really excited to see what card I ended up pairing with our first storyteller. I love this woman's stories so much. They're often moving. They're often very amusing, and it's been a pleasure to really get to know her over the past year or so in the LA storytelling scene. I'm so pleased to have with us tonight Vicky Juditz.
Thank you. This story happened about 7 years ago. My daughter was 15. I dropped her off at school, high school, and I got home and my heart started racing. I mean, my heart was beating so fast, it was as if I had just run up 3 flights of stairs. I mean, like one of those movies where you run up the stairs in the abandoned building and there's somebody behind you trying to kill you with an axe. Anxiety? I wondered. I mean, anxiety was something that my daughter had struggled with for years, and one of the symptoms was your heart racing. Also, tightness in the chest, sensation of a fog descending, perception your every waking moment was a dream. It's fascinating how the mind can fool us. And her symptoms had intensified after her father's suicide when she was 14. But now she was 15. And these symptoms had started to go away, I think because she had started seeing her very first boyfriend. And I was happy for her. I was. And she said that he was caring and respectful, and he did seem to be, although I'd actually never spoken to him, even though I did see and hear him every day, because she would video chat with him on her laptop in the living room. So I would see his face. And I'd hear his voice while she did her homework and while he did his homework. And after they finished the homework, I mean, for me, it was kind of like he lived on the coffee table. I'd call out to him, hey, how's it going? Call out to him on the screen as I passed through the living room on the way to my bedroom to give them privacy. Not like, when she video chatted with her girlfriends. No, when the girls were on the screen, I could stay in the living room and I could, chime in with a comment, a joke, be part of the conversation. But with the boyfriend, no. She would give me dirty looks if I stayed in the living room. So from my bedroom, I could hear them talking. I mean, I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were talking. I'd hear my daughter laugh. And that was really a wonderful sound. I really hadn't heard her laugh a whole lot since her father had passed. So a couple times, I tiptoed down the hallway from my bedroom to the living room to see what they were laughing about. And, it was always something to do with play practice. That's how they had met. He was on stage crew, and she was in the school musical. She was a singing policeman in a musical about gangsters called Face the Music. And that was how I had met my very first boyfriend. Same thing. He had been on stage crew, and I had been a worldwide wicked girl wearing red hot pants in a musical called How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. So the night before my heart started racing as if I were being chased by an axe murderer, the boyfriend had invited my daughter over to his house for the very first time. So I had driven her over there because, she was 15 and she didn't drive. And on the way, I just happened to say, oh, will there be an adult at home? Because he was older. The boyfriend was 17, my daughter was 15, and he had had girlfriends before my daughter. And I thought she was going to say, oh, yeah, of course. And she said, I don't know, Mom, doesn't matter. I said, oh, yes, it does. So we got to the house. It was an adorable place. And, they had the most adorable patio furniture on the porch with these bright orange cushions. Anyway, there was a car in the driveway, but that didn't necessarily mean there was an adult at home. So I insisted on walking my daughter to the door. How mortifying, right? And as we were walking up there, I thought, gee, I wonder what the boyfriend's going to say if indeed there's nobody else home and he sees me standing at the door. And then I thought, oh, wait, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? Am I going to, go into the house? Will all three sit on the couch and watch TV? I did not have a plan. So we got to the front door and rang the bell, and I heard a dog barking, and then I heard the dog's toenails, scratching on the floor and sliding across the floor. And finally the door opened, and there was the boyfriend holding the collar of the dog, which I think was a Cocker Spaniel. I don't know, I'm not a dog person. But behind the boyfriend and dog was that boy's entire family. His parents, his younger sister. So after my daughter and I were safely inside, the door was closed, the dog was released, the boyfriend and my daughter ran off somewhere, and the mom, a very attractive petite brunette, said, oh, would you like to stay for a drink? And I said, oh, actually, I thought, no, I shouldn't tell her I'm a recovered alcoholic. I mean, we were already a scary family. I mean, what with my husband's suicide and everything, which I'm sure they already knew about. But I knew that my daughter did not want me standing around chatting with the family. But, I was curious about them, and their living room was adorable. They had love seats and armchairs upholstered in gold and brown striped velvet. There was art on the walls. So finally I said, oh, maybe a cup of tea, if you have it. And the dad said, oh, tea, yeah, I think we have tea. So he went to the kitchen. Very quickly he was back. And we all sat down, and the dad told me he was a stand-up comedian. And the mom said she wrote stories. She had just had something published in a magazine about women warriors called Roar. And the daughter told me she was a dancer, and she told me all about her upcoming dance concert. And I just wanted to stay there all evening, listen to the stories. I knew my daughter would not like that one bit. So I finished the tea, and I said I'd be back around 10. So I went home and tried to do my go-to activity. I tried to read the New Yorker magazine. I could not concentrate on atrocities in Syria, wondering what the heck was going on at the house of the boyfriend. And then I thought, oh, maybe I'll watch a movie. I had a screener of something called August Osage County. Well, if you know that movie, it opens with the death of the father. I'm like, okay, not that. And I thought, well, maybe I could shop. So I went to the grocery store and I bought, like paper towels and, canned goods and stuff I didn't really need, but I could always use. Went home. Finally, it was time to go to the house of the boyfriend. So I drove over there, and my daughter got in the car, and she said, "Oh my gosh, they had a sit-down dinner, home-cooked meal, everybody sitting together." And at first, it was kind of awkward, but then she said it was wonderful. They're so entertaining. And then she said, "Mom, it was a real family." And yeah, I knew what she meant by that. Since her father passed, it was just the two of us sitting at the kitchen counter eating takeout for dinner. And I wish that I could have stayed at the house of the boyfriend and had dinner and been part of the real family. And then I started to feel really jealous of the real family. I thought, oh great, she's going to go over there all the time. She'll go on vacation with them. She will go there for Thanksgiving, and I'll be alone. And I thought about that movie Coraline. I don't know if you've seen it. It's for children, but adults can enjoy it too. It's animated. So Coraline, she's an only child, and she lives in this big house with her parents, and they're ignoring her. And she finds a secret door. And she opens that door, and she goes along this tunnel to the kitchen of the other mother. And the other mother looks just like her real mother, but she's perfect. And she pays lots of attention to Coraline and bakes cookies all the time. And Coraline wants to stay there forever. Now, it turns out that this other mother is actually a demon. Ha! And then Coraline wants to get out of there. But in real life, my daughter's boyfriend and his family weren't demons. And I thought, well, my daughter is going to move in over there and she's never going to come home. So it was the morning after the dinner with the real family that my heart started racing as if I were being chased by an axe murderer. So at home, I sat down at my kitchen counter and I started to write some checks, try to pay bills, but I was getting dizzy and the room was spinning. And I thought, oh no, this isn't anxiety. I think maybe I'm having a heart attack. So I grabbed my keys and my purse and I jumped in my car and I started driving to urgent care. And I drove very, very carefully because I did not want to have an accident while I was having a heart attack. And of course, I turned on the radio, NPR, and there was Mark Maron talking about his drug use. And he said that he had had a bad mushroom trip at a Grateful Dead concert, but he had caught the eye of an aging hippie who said, "Hang on, man, hang on." And I said to myself, "Hang on, man, hang on." And I got to urgent care, and at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, there was nobody there. So I just paced all around, trying to slow my heart. It didn't work. There was a flat screen TV on the wall. And on that TV, an announcer came on, and he said that women over 50 have a higher rate of heart attack. And then a cartoon version of a woman's artery came on the screen, and the walls of the artery began to harden, and the artery began to fill with plaque, and the opening became more and more narrow, and pressure built up, and the heart had to work too hard, and the woman to whom that artery belonged was about to have a heart attack and die. I thought, oh, great, I'm just going to have a heart attack and die. Well, thank goodness my affairs are in order. My late husband's sister will fly out from New York, and she'll meet with the lawyer, and she'll read the will, and my daughter will move in with the real family, and it's okay. That is all right, because they are not demons. Finally, a nurse came out, and she took me to a consultation room. And a doctor came in, and he took my pulse, and he said, "It's normal, 80 beats a minute. The mind makes you think that your heart is racing. Fascinating how the mind can fool us. Whenever you think your heart's racing, take your pulse. You'll see, it's normal." And so, from that day, whenever I think my heart is racing, I find a clock, I grab my wrist, and I say, "Hang on, man, hang on."
I I want to make sure I have money to go on this date, and I'm worried about parking. Like, there's no free parking in Brentwood anywhere, and the oh I think my audio just clipped in. I don't think I think I had a technical problem. I'm not sure. Anything I just said up until recently went out live, so I want to backtrack a little bit. I picked the card, the Five of Swords for Vicky's story, because the swords have to do with the realm of the mind, and they have a keynote of progress and sort of breaking through, but also of difficulty. So I thought it was very appropriate to her story, sort of the trouble our mind makes for ourselves, that we can make ourselves so anxious that we can actually feel sick. Sorry about that. And moving forward, back to my story, I won't repeat from the beginning, so you won't have to listen to me all over again. But this is a story of me going on a blind date and worrying about having the money for it. And I'm in Brentwood, California, and where this date is going to take place. And I get there for this blind date. I get there really early because I'm worried about having enough money to pay for parking and the date. And there's I scour the residential neighborhoods around the restaurant in Brentwood, and I'm loop around the block for like 20 minutes, and I find a free parking space. And so there's like the first financial hurdle of the date cleared. And I go in, and I'm still really early, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. Like, so I don't have to walk around the restaurant looking for this woman Lizzie that I'm there to meet. Like, I'll recognize her when she comes in, and she comes in, and like, boy, does she appeal to me. Like, she's really attractive. She's smart looking. She has frizzy hair. I don't know. I don't know what makes me think this, but she looks like she's like, maybe she's Jewish. Like, I don't know. She makes a big impression on me, and so like now not only am I nervous about having the money to pay for this date, but I'm nervous about impressing this woman, Lizzie. And we get to talking, and she's about to finish her PhD in art history. And I think that's great. Like, I don't know tons about art history, but I know enough about art that I can hold up my end of the conversation. And so I'm like, great, that's something we can talk about on this date, because I don't have much going on in my life. We can talk about art history. But she's burnt out on it. She's been like living and breathing art history for the last few for the last significant portion of her life, and it's like the last thing she wants to do to relax. And she wants to talk about anything but art. And so now I'm on the spot, and she's she's very polite, but she asks about me and like what I'm up to, and I've got nothing, except I don't quite have nothing. I've been taking sketch comedy writing classes, and so I talk about writing sketch comedy for a while, but there's only so long that can go on for, and eventually, that part of the conversation has run its course, and she asked me if I've written anything else, and I tell her I'm writing, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia spec script. And it doesn't feel like a lie when I say it. But the reality is I've been meaning to write an It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia spec script. Like, I haven't actually sat down and done it yet. Like, it's been my intention. Like, I've woken up for weeks with this on my mind that I was going to do it. But I haven't done it yet. And normally that's a safe lie to tell. If you tell someone in LA you're writing a spec script, nobody wants to hear the follow-up. Like, no one's that interested in your spec script. Like, it's like you and every other person at Starbucks is writing a spec script. So I think I'm going to be safe in my lie. But Lizzie's very polite. She asked me follow-up questions about the spec script. And so now, rather than confess the lie, I'm writing it in the spot in my head. I'm answering questions about this non-existent spec script, and it's not going well. I can feel the date sort of falter, but it doesn't completely fall apart. Like, we can't end it quite yet. We're still feeling each other out, and so we've already done drinks and an appetizer, and we decided to do another round of drinks. And now I'm really sweating the finances because, drinks. I have $70 for this date to get in and out of, drinks are like $15 each, so we do two rounds of drinks. So that's like, it's coming right up on my budget, and the date ends. I get the bill. I can cover the bill and leave. Not the most generous tip I've ever left, but a perfectly adequate tip. And we're leaving, and I ask Lizzie to walk her to her car, and she says no. And so we just part ways, and I feel like really ungentlemanly, like not walking her to her car. But she wants the date to be over, and trying to insist like that's a bad move, So I let it go, and we go our separate ways. And I like her a lot, and I think I'm a second date kind of guy. Like, on the first date, I'm too anxious and in my head, but like I really shine on a second date. So I'm hoping she'll give me another chance. And we. So I let a day or two go by, and I call her and I ask for another date, and I never hear back. And at a certain point in time, no answer becomes the answer. So I know I'm not going to see Lizzie again. But I had been depressed and living at home, and to get the money for this date, I had ended up, what I did to be able to pay for it was I had sold my Xbox. And taking this thing that I was using to isolate and stay depressed and alone in my bedroom, getting rid of that to take a chance on making a real human connection with someone else, like, it made all the difference in my life. So even though the date didn't go well, it was such a good experience. And even though it stressed me out, my friend Tina really did do me a solid favor by setting me up on this date. Thanks so much. And oh man, let me see. I'm having technical issues here. I seem to be frozen. I'm going to try to pull a card here, if I can get the video camera back in action. And for my own story, rather than assign a card to myself, I'm going to pull one at random, and then try to work that in to what I shared, and hopefully I've done that before, and it seems to have to work out. So the card for my story is the Page of Cups. I'm holding it up, but I guess I'm having some issues with my webcam. But the Page of Cups is the cups are all about emotion and feeling, and the page is sort of a knight to be. He's a young person being initiated in, and so like I feel like getting out of my depression and sort of moving back into the world of human connection and emotions. the Page of Cups is a very appropriate card for that. And I'm really looking forward to our next storyteller. I'm pleased to introduce a very good friend of mine. She's a talented storyteller. She's been on the Risk podcast. She's been part of the USA Today, Ventura County Star Storytellers Project, and just an all-around great person. Like, not only is she great at telling stories, she's great to workshop things with. I enjoy her feedback on my own stories, and I'm really pleased to have with us Erica Blumfield. Although, let me see.
Yay! Okay, thank you, Ryan. That was such a lovely introduction. Okay, so here's my tarot card story. So I struggle with anxiety, but I try as much as possible to implement healthy things to help ease the intensity, like spending time with my friends and hiking, listening to music, shopping at dollar store sales. But sometimes, no matter what I do to relieve the anxiety, it doesn't work. And it was on this type of anxious day when my friend called and asked me if I wanted to join him at a tarot card reading event. Now, I had lived in Los Angeles for 15 years, but never ever bought a crystal or burned sage, let alone have my tarot cards read. And I will admit, I laughed and rolled my eyes at the New Age culture. And when I was growing up, what I knew of the mystical was a joke my aunt always pulled on me. She would ask, "Do you want your palm read?" And I would say, "Yes." And she would take out her lipstick and draw a big red circle on the palm of my hand and say, "There, now your palm's red." And I did have a little bit of experience with tarot in college, but my memory of it was foggy and my knowledge limited. It was my best friend at the time was this very authentic bohemian feminist who lived in the East Village way before gentrification, and she burned incense and made fresh peppermint tea, grew out her underarm hair, and was learning to read tarot. And on a few occasions, I was her experimental subject, but she quickly got bored and annoyed with me because all I wanted to know about was some guy I liked. And now, when my friend called, I was curious about having a reading, but I worried. I was so anxious. Would I ruin my friend's time? I was nervous about being around strangers and having to pretend to be okay. But my friend got it, and he reassured me, and so I agreed to go. We arrived and parked, and to escape the cold, stormy weather, we rushed from the car inside. It was dimly lit, and the architecture had this gothic vibe. The storm raged outside, and you could hear the patter of rain on the stained glass windows, and there was a tranquility emanating from the other people, and I felt my anxiety easing. I didn't have to wait long before the tarot card reader summoned me into a comfortably, softly lit study. Her name was Clarice, and she said in a smoky voice, her name was Clarice, she told me in a smoky voice, and she had this authentic, cool, witch-like Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac vibe, and she radiated such a high level of cool, I felt worried that she would think I was completely lame. Clarice looked into my eyes as though she could see my soul. She explained that the tarot consisted of 78 cards, each with their own imagery, symbolism, story, and meaning. She said tarot allows us to connect the magic in our lives. It increases synchronicity, which increases intuition, which leads to meaning. And then she paused and looked at me even more intently and said, "After all, what are we all looking for if not meaning, I'm completely captivated. She handed me the thick deck of tarot cards and instructed me to shuffle with intention, to think of a question, really setting my attention on the cards. And as I shuffled, my thoughts raced. Who am I? I'm a person, I'm a teacher, I'm a friend, I'm a writer, I'm a single woman, but I'm 43 and I finally know, don't waste your question on a guy. Clarice is waiting, so I hand the cards back to her. She raises an eyebrow and says, shuffle again. I'm not sure you truly set your intention. In my mind, I'm like, oh my God, she is so for real. She reminds me, remember, be really clear on your question. I shuffle the cards again and I wonder, what do I need to know most at this time of my life? Truth is, what I always want to know is that I'm not going to lose my mind and end up homeless, because that actually happened to me 15 years ago. Like, I was pushing trash in shopping carts, lost my mind. I'd become very erratic and bizarre in my behaviors, and I had these grandiose delusions in which I thought my life was a reality television show, or my mood would plummet into a darkness so deep that I was making exit plans. And I lost everything. I lost a budding acting career, my friends, my boyfriend, and I felt robbed, and that it was all meaningless. It took a lot of hard work and time to recover, find medication and therapy that worked. But I kept going, and I kept trying all through it to find light in the darkness. It helped me stay strong. It helped me stay stable. And so now here I was in this warm room, having my cards read by witchy, cool Clarice, wondering what I needed to know most at this time of my life. And I handed the cards back, and this time she's satisfied. She pulled the first card, and a smile crossed her face. And she explained that it was the Queen of Wands. And some key words to go with the Queen of Wands, she explained, was determination and courage. She said, look at you sitting there on your throne. You have worked hard to get there, and no one and nothing is going to knock you down. She said that I was here to see my creative visions through, and even in the face of adversity and challenge, that nothing would knock me down, that I was solid, that I was solid. Tears of happiness came to my eyes. A sigh of relief escaped from my lips. The next card was the World card. The world was holding me, the Queen of Wands, up. I was being supported by the world. It was telling me that I'm not alone in this. The world has got my back. And that was so good to hear, because life can be so scary. And then just when I thought it couldn't get better, she places the next card, the Magician card, and explains that this was the past. She said it's an interesting past. She said everything that I had been through, all the rabbits I had pulled from the hat, they matter. She told me to give myself a vote of confidence and tell myself that what I've done is something. She said that I'm here to help bring out the best and most beautiful out of everyone I love and everyone I know and myself. And that makes me feel worthwhile. And then finally, my future. And I'm not bragging, but it was the Hermit card, which is an enlightenment card, and I was like at first like, oh no, a hermit. I can't be a hermit. I'm 43 and single. Maybe I should have asked that question about the guy. But actually, the card is about being of service to others, helping them on their path and taking what I know and help shining the light forward so that where I went, they can go and be okay. And in that moment, I had never felt so certain that I could and that I would survive anything, even getting sick again. And I had never felt so sure that battling and surviving mental illness was meaningful and purposeful, and all anxiety was gone from my body. And I knew Clarice was right when she said, after all, what are we all looking for, if not meaning? Thank you, Ryan, and viewers.
Oh man, we're having some technical meltdowns, but that was a wonderful story from Erica. I love that story so much, and that's what she shared is part of the reason why I like this show. So why I like to do this show and why this show exists is the power of the cards to give us messages about our life and to be able to find meaning in them. And for her her first story, because it's about tarot, there's a lot of cards that would be an okay fit. But what I thought was particularly fitting for what Erica shared with us is the Wheel of Fortune, because it's like the wheel turns and we turn with it, and sometimes we're the king on the top, or like in her case the Queen of Wands, and sometimes we're an unpleasant experience and we're at the bottom of the wheel. And I like that she had some ambivalent feelings about the tarot, but she decided to kind of turn the wheel and see what came up and lean into this experience, and ended up giving her a lot of meaning and insight into her own life. And like that's like the perfect tarot story. I love that so much, and that was a meaningful experience for her. And so now is the portion of the show where I put together the 3 cards that have come up based on the readings, and from Vicky's story with the power of the mind and the racing heart that wasn't. We have the 5 of Swords, and from my story about taking a chance on the blind date and getting back out into the real world, even though it didn't go well. We have the Page of Cups, and with Erica, once again, it's the Wheel of Fortune. And so putting those together, there's sort of it's sort of it starts with the 5 of Swords. We're starting in the realm of the mind, and sort of some of the difficulties the mind can create for us, and some of the anxieties, and moving from sort of the anxieties of the mind to the Page of Cups is opening yourself back up to experience, being willing to be new again at something, being willing to initiate something, and new beginnings, and and from those new beginnings, we engage back with the world, and it's the Wheel of Fortune, and the wheel turns and does what it will do, but by sort of overcoming the anxieties of our mind and leaning into our feelings and what we know to be true in our heart, no matter which way the wheel turns, whether we're on top or at the bottom, we'll get through. And so all the readings I've done so far with this show recently have been somewhat informed by the pandemic, and I think this one likewise is a little bit informed by that, and that we're in our homes, we're going a little stir crazy, our minds can sort of not necessarily they're not always our best ally. You know, we can engage in things and click on the news endlessly and do things that are crazy making. But if we're willing to take a new perspective on things and sort of own this new space we find ourselves in, then we can be prepared for whichever way the wheel turns. And I think that's sort of the takeaway from the reading is to be ready for the wheel to turn and to adjust with it, and eventually we'll find ourselves back on top again. And I'm so sorry we've had some technical difficulties this evening. I'm looking for a new platform to use to produce this. So we will be back next week, hopefully with a little bit of a smoother run on the technical end of things. But I'm so appreciative for everyone for tuning in, and a big thank you once again to my storytellers, Vicky and Erica. I'm so grateful for what they shared with us. It's so special to me to be able to do this and give a platform for other people to share their stories and get more insight into this crazy world we live in. Thank you so much, and I will see you all again next week.